Hello. Welcome to Warp Zone,
Hi.
episode 13.
Could be a lucky number, gentlemen.
It's going to be the lucky number. I'm Sean Nugent.
I'm Phil B. Real.
And I'm Jose Society. Thanks for joining us on this Monday, everybody, June 27th.
All
What are
right.
we warping about?
Let's quickly talk about what we're playing. For me, it's Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Heroes. That's a mouthful of a title. This is a game for Nintendo nerds like myself. But Fire Emblem games traditionally are turn-based strategy. They're kind of slow-paced. They're like really for like the ultra otaku, I guess you'd call them, to throw in a term from Tokyo Vice. But this is kind of an action-oriented take on it. Instead of like doing all these turn-based RPG type things, you're just hacking and slashing. You're killing hordes of enemies, going from place to place on a map. These are really modeled after the Dynasty Warriors games, which they don't have a great reputation. They're kind of like the lowest common denominator things. But when you add Nintendo stories to the mix, they can turn into something special. That's what you get with the Zelda take on this, which was released a few years ago now, the Fire Emblem as well. So it's a new little trend Nintendo's got going. I like it. I'd rather play this than a normal Fire Emblem game, so I'm enjoying that. What about you? What's been occupying your time, Sean? You got a couple recent reviews.
I haven't really played any games this week. Like this weekend, I didn't play any games. There's nothing out. It's like the summer is just this barren wasteland of no video games, and I don't know why. Bring out the games.
Where are they hiding? Jose, what about you?
Where are they?
So I don't know if this would come as a surprise to you guys that I feel like my curiosity into video gaming kind of hit a wall. What I mean by that is I find myself just gravitating to the comfort food of video games for me, which is you stick to your NBA 2K 21-22, which that one I just bought like a month ago, sort of, seeing how advanced the graphics got, which of course are leaps and bounds from when we all started playing NBA 2K, 2003 or whatever that was when we first got that that game. Madden, just again, sort of kind of a comfort food game. Easy just to put on and kind of forget everything else. Although, Phil, when you mentioned, I didn't put two together when you in the Fire Emblem stuff, how some of the characters, since it's a Nintendo property, we probably used them or played them in games like Smash Brothers, right? Like that's sort of my very much understanding.
Yeah, most people who are aware of Fire Emblem don't play the games. They just use them in or fight against them in Smash Bros. That's absolutely correct. I think that's kind of like their gateway drug for maybe getting interested. But yeah, if you wonder where these weird little guys come from, you're going to eventually find your way to the Fire Emblem games. And it's a very weird world. You got to have a lot of time, you got to have a lot of patience. But if you're into Fire Emblem, you really, really love those games. I'm kind of a middle ground person. I'll play them dabble a little bit, and I don't get into it as much as other people. But the newer game is definitely my way to go into the series. And it tells us really the same story as the game that was released a few years ago. So if you want that same story, but you don't have to do all the effort for it, this is a much better, easier way to experience
it. How is it like Zelda?
Well, it's not like Zelda itself, but it's like the Zelda Warriors game that was released. The name escapes me. It's called I'm going to find out. It's called like Age of Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. So they don't even use the word Zelda in the title. So that one came out years back. Looks like it's 2014. I didn't realize it was that long ago. But they have released a lot of updates, so they're keeping that one kind of relevant. This was not a mainline Zelda game. Like this one, it's kind of like your Link, or you could play as Zelda. I think you can even play as Ganondorf and other villains, and you just go out and you just slaughter mass amounts of enemies in a very easy manner. So, Sean, are you versed in the Dynasty Warriors? You ever play any of those games?
I am actually versed. I was going to say there was a Fire Emblem Warriors style game that came out 4 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that. It was on the Switch as well, and I ended up playing that. I think that was actually my first Fire Emblem game. I've always liked the character designs in Fire Emblem, but I've never been able to get into it because it's a strategy game and it's a Nintendo game, so I haven't really touched it. I do like the Warriors games, though. There are some really good. They usually spin off into anime series, like One Piece has one. the mainline series gets kind of ridiculous, and some of them are among like the worst games ever made. It really
like Gundam. I've heard of Dynasty Warriors Gundam. That has a pretty bad reputation.
Yeah, there's a Gundam one. It's one of those series where it's either they do a really good job with it, or it's just really bad. And I think it's just because the gameplay is press X, kill people. That's all there is to it.
There's something to be said for that, you know. Like for me, especially a very low-skilled gamer who really can't do much more than press X. Like I need that kind of panel.
They're fun because of that.
All right, we can move on to. I know we've all seen one movie. This is rarely happens on any Warp Zone, but we've all seen now that Sean's seen it, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We'll wait a little bit for Sean to give his opinion. I want to hear yours first, Jose. Like, what's your take on that film?
I'll preface this, guys, if you can imagine some of our coworkers we work with, very, no room in the middle, no gray zone when it came to this movie. It was either very much enjoyed it, the background of the comic book that they based a lot of this on, or if you're on the other side, you're like, this was a total mishit. I think I might be leaning more toward the latter camp, only because, to me at some point it felt like there were a bunch of different movies that they maybe wanted to try and actually film. I don't know. I felt like Sam Raimi wasn't given all the creative control he might have wanted in this kind of movie. They didn't push the envelope enough with a lot of the horror elements. The writing, and I will let Phil and Sean, you guys can expand on that. I'm big on writing, and I thought they could have done a better job. It wasn't as strong. So, Sean, what are your impressions beyond the writing, I guess?
Well, real quick, Phil, what just as a recap, what did you end up giving it, or how did you feel about it?
I believe I gave it 3 stars, if I remember correctly. I like this movie. Like, to me, this is totally Sam Raimi. I'm not a huge fan of.
We lost him. The Necronomicon took Phil. Okay. I'll take over. I'll take over real quick. He gave it 3 out of 4. I wouldn't even give it. I might give it 2. I did not like this movie at all. I think it opened kind of strong, but the problem is it looked like Spy Kids. And the entire time I was watching, I was like, this just looks so stupid. If it's going for the horror aspect, like at the very beginning with the big octopus monster or whatever, it looked so ridiculous. And then it got like the gore of him ripping the eyeball out. And I was like, I can't tell what it's trying to go for. Is it trying to go for the cutesy kitty stuff? Is it trying to go for the gory stuff? It just like did not mesh very well.
Sean, let's bring us all down.
Sean, since we just brought that up, I might loop Phil back in because I don't know if he froze up, so I don't want him to miss sharing that opinion. Since I know my mic is open, we want to see if we can bring Phil back in because little inside baseball, he shared a lot of really interesting stuff. So I think we'll see if we could get Phil back on.
I was just saying this is very Sam Raimi film. It's got a lot of throwbacks to the Evil Dead type stuff, especially Bruce Campbell's cameo as Pizza Papa. I love that line, and it's just a fun post-credit scene too. So I enjoyed this movie a lot. It makes me excited for what's to come in Marvel. I understand, Sean, you're seeing it a different way.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, is I really appreciated the Sam Raimi stuff. There's a part where Scarlet Witch is attacking everyone and the doors are slamming and it's zooming into the doors slamming. I'm like, it's very Evil Dead. There's a lot of Evil Dead here, but I don't know that the film's I'm trying to find the word for it, just how it feels, the feeling behind it. The tone, there we go. That's the word. That was an easy one to figure out. I don't think the tone of the film really matched it meshed, I should say. There were the horror elements. It had some like surprising gore for being a PG-13 movie, but those horror elements combined with the Spy Kidsy stuff, and then like trying to be silly because it has to be a Marvel movie with silliness in it, it just never worked for me. The entire movie to me either didn't go far enough in one direction, which I think it could have with the Scarlet Witch stuff. Like they were really trying to make it scary and horror and like her eyeball showing up and all that, but it couldn't go that. And you can tell that's where Sam Raimi wanted, because I believe he wanted this to be an R-rated movie to start with.
Maybe that's what they were missing, Sean, right? That you mentioned sort of them wanting to lean into the horror genre, where there was one scene where I believe it was a chase where it was, the Christine of that universe they were in with the, spoiler alert, the Illuminati, and Doctor Strange in America, and then you sort of had these surprise, angles where Scarlet Witch comes up. It becomes kind of that scary movie feeling. I don't know. Maybe I'm with you with saying like this movie might have benefited from an R rating if they really wanted to go all the way with a lot of the character deaths and the gore elements.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I'm being too harsh, Phil. I'll give them credit for trying. I just don't know if they were hampered, you think, by the studio wanting to make sure they didn't cross too many lines.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to work in those strict confinements when you're working with the MCU. Like there's like a whole Bible of rules and things you can do and things you can't do. Might see that a little bit with Thor. I'm very excited and interested to see where they go with that. But to me, it's just fun. I thought I had fun this whole movie. I watched it twice, I think in 3 days. Enjoyed it even more the second time. So I was a big fan of this movie. To me, it was funny, which it needed to be. You needed to have that humor. The Marvel movies I dislike the most are the ones that are slower or just don't have the humor, like Black Widow. No, it really attempted anything funny. So to me, the humor connected with me. It worked. It was Sam Raimi at his best. He's not phoning it in this time. He's kind of like, he's giving it the old Raimi effort, which I like to see.
Let's move on to other items. Phil,
it's Westworld week. We had Westworld came back, and this is a series that people kind of look on with as much dread as excitement because there's a lot of homework associated with it. Every single episode of Westworld just launches scores of fan theories and like water cooler talk. It really is kind of one of those water cooler shows. Maybe that's not quite as popular as most of them are, but if you are a fan of Westworld, you're going to find someone who likes it, and you're going to talk about it and discuss it, and then you're going to be severely disappointed on what actually happens. So Sean and I were talking a little bit about this earlier. Season 1 was fantastic. Great show. Came at a great time, kind of when Game of Thrones was starting to die out a little bit. But then it's kind of getting progressively weirder and worse as it goes on. I was talking to a producer earlier about this, and I was saying, don't watch the show because I'm hooked. I'm not going to stop watching it. I'll watch Westworld as long as these episodes are made, but I don't want that for anyone else. If you're hooked, you're hooked. But if you're not, just stay away because it's kind of miserable to be involved and just keep on having to watch this weird show.
That is the most perfect encapsulation of my feelings. That is like exactly what I would say. Honestly, I would suggest season 1 to anyone because season 1 is one of the best single seasons of a television series in if not TV or like recent memory. Season 2, it just got way too big for its britches. It didn't know where to go. It started into the whole J.J. Abrams, like Lost. It just did not know where to go. It kind of had its eye on an ending, but the whole samurai world thing was totally unnecessary. It just got so convoluted for no reason. Season 3 felt like it was getting, even though it wasn't Westworld, it doesn't feel like Westworld anymore. At least it was interesting and it was kind of getting back on track. But this season 4 premiere was one of the worst premieres I've ever watched. Like a premiere should excite you for a show. You should be like, heck yeah, I cannot wait to watch the rest of this. And the most exciting part was the cold open and then the preview for the rest of the season. everything in between, that 55 minutes between, was so boring, and it makes me wonder why the series just keeps going.
Yeah, it really could stop. It should have maybe stopped 2 seasons ago, like you mentioned. It's very much the Lost effect. Where, like, why is it going? It's like it's being made up as it goes along. Like, I was excited for that samurai stuff that was blowing my mind at the time, but then there's like so many other worlds. Like, there's no way the economy could support this many amusement parks for extremely rich people who like to mangle and kill both real and real people and robots. So it's just not very like hard to connect to. But now we're getting into like very like metaverse type thing in these last couple seasons where you're talking about, is this the Matrix? Is it a Matrix of the Matrix? What is even going on? Do they even know? Do they care? Jose, what's your Westworld background?
This is sort of my bad habit, Phil, where especially when it comes to HBO properties, that something kind of grabs your interest at first and you maybe stick around the first 2-3 episodes. I did not follow up until that point. I will say, kind of just to get a sense of where the series has gone since then, and this may be something I pick back up. Perhaps to both of your points, I was looking at some of the data that showed just this drop in viewership that actually coincides with maybe the lack of quality in season 2 and 3. Somehow it seemed like the wider their world got, the wider the Westworld got, the more those storylines branched out. It seems like a lot of the viewership tuned out. I also don't know when season 2 and 3 came out. I couldn't tell you which of the new shows started streaming, and that maybe took some of the HBO viewership with it. Less eyeballs for Westworld. So as a genre, I like it. I don't know if you guys think if this is the problem with the writer with like J.J. Abrams and Lost, like you said, or Game of Thrones even, where some of the stuff wasn't finished being written as they were also producing and getting the show ready, where maybe we benefit from having a clear plan from the get-go. I agree with you guys on that for sure.
That's exactly right. Michael says Westworld is very good, strange but good, and I agree. It's a very well made show, and that's what keeps me coming back. I think season 1, I don't think a lot of people got into it like they did Game of Thrones, because I do think there's a hurdle that it's a hard science fiction series. It's cyberpunky. It's very cerebral, and that first season is hard. It's hard to get into, and it's so confusing. And I think the problem is, as it goes along, they keep making it more convoluted and confusing. Season 1 kind of ended, and it was good where it ended, but then season 2, they were like, oh, now we need to send the robots to robot heaven. And that was kind of the impetus for season 2, was everyone trying to go to robot heaven. And then season 3 introduced, they left the park, and they introduced Rehoboam, which was humanity is basically being guided by this robot that says exactly what time you'll die, where you're going to go. And it's like, oh, look, humans don't have free will either. And now this season's introducing a character who crafts narratives in like real world video games and crafts NPCs. And now it's getting into like, oh, maybe life is a video game. And it's just every season is latching on to some sort of science fiction dystopian concept. And they don't all need to be there. The first season of Westworld, just by itself, I'm sure you'll agree with this, Phil, is perfect as is. When you keep introducing so much to the pot, it just becomes so muddled and unnecessary. It feels like it's just trying to find a plot to exist.
Yeah, for me, it's like Deadwood was really great first season. HBO show that's from way back in the day. And I kept on watching the other seasons, and even the movie they came out with years later, just in hopes that magic would be recaptured from the original. That's why I still watch Adam Sandler movies. Like, I'm kind of just like hooked on some certain things. I respect, and I'm very jealous of Jose's ability to break away from this show, because I doubt you're there, Sean. I know I'm not. going to drop this show cold, just in hopes that it could return to some semblance of what it once was. But yeah, like the commenter said, very beautiful show, well shot, very creative. At least you don't ever know what you're going to get in this weird, wacky show. So there's something to be said for that.
Real quick, guys, if you think, since I haven't gotten through season 1 yet, do you think if it had ended in a way where it was more of a Truman Show goal, where the point was to sort of just break from the simulation, so to speak, or is this property too good to end in one season? Because sometimes some of the stuff we watch that's new, it becomes limited series where it's like it can be a contained 6-7 episodes, just really jam-packed with content. But to me, this sounds like if they had a more fleshed out idea, you could actually explore beyond it. So I don't know if it maybe would have benefited from that sort of Truman Show-like villain where you go confront the creator, and then once you break from the simulation, it's sort of like, okay, you're free.
Yeah, I think we saw that like season 2, kind of. So now you've got like Truman Show in the Truman Show within a Truman Show, which who knows? Like, there's a James Marsden character that was introduced. There's no idea or implication who this person even is, what he does. Like, he could be a side character, he could be the master of everything. We really don't know. But I'm intrigued by that. Like, I'm going to keep watching this show just to find out, and I'm going to be severely disappointed in whatever the answer is, because like you said, Jose, there's no way to gracefully end something like this. Maybe you do have an ultimate goal, but however this show ends, it's going to be an absolute breeze. I think everybody can know.
It's going to be great. And as I was watching it, I was so excited for the premiere, and I texted my girlfriend. I'm like, I'm sorry, I got to watch this. And I'm texting her, God, why did I start this? I am so bored. And it's like, I need to see the show just keep digging its own grave. I need to see how they're going to end. And the problem here is that Westworld, the movie, if you've seen Westworld, the movie, great movie. But this is turning into Future World, which was the sequel, where it's like, oh, we're going to have the robots take over the politicians and everything. And we're going to have the robots and it's doing it a little more gracefully than the like B movie. But it's still such a stupid plot that it's like, why are we doing this?
I never did see Future World, and I didn't even know it existed, I think, until you told me about it. And it blows my mind. I do need to get out and see Future World. I bet it's it sounds fun from the awful ways you describe it.
It is a dumpster fire. I hate when series do time travel, says Michael. I love the Star Trek franchise, but Discovery lost me some in season 2. I don't know if any of us have seen Discovery. I refuse to watch new Star Trek. It's too not Star Trek to me.
And there's so much new Star Trek. Like there's Below Deck. There's like Picard. There's a new one too, right? That's only on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, I can't keep track.
There's a game coming out, but the opposite of Greasefire, Jose was telling us about a show that he recommends. So a little positivity coming along. Jose, tell us about this Discovery of yours.
Sure, Discovery might be the perfect word for it, Phil. So thank you. You think of CGI and dinosaurs, your mind immediately goes to, okay, is this some sort of cheap knockoff of Jurassic Park? Jurassic World is very much in the zeitgeist, or just in the conversation right now in the water cooler with this third of the last trilogy. I found Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV Plus, so we can have a discussion about just how much more content the platform needs. But this, if you're someone who loves David Attenborough narrated contribution to the series, BBC production, citing this team of scientists that has been doing this research. So not to give the whole thing away, but I think this will hook you in, guys. Episode 1, they sort of weave this story, because we can't find it. We can't ever show this. How T-Rexes, their bone structure and their body actually would have allowed them to be agile swimmers. I never would have thought in my dreams that a T-Rex, which is already a fearsome, terrifying creature, if you're basing this off of the research these scientists did, they're excellent swimmers, and sort of this discovery of the world we exist in today. What were those environments like millions of years ago? Deserts, coasts, plains. Just I'd be really excited if there was something like I could find you guys clips to see just the imagination. Like I'd imagine anyone who loves the romance of Jurassic Park as sort of like imagine you could be in a world with these characters, with these animals. I'm sold on it. So, if nothing else, is just an aspirational nature documentary that has to engage in a little bit of fiction because we can't actually film dinosaurs in real life.
Yeah, and it just shows you what Jurassic series itself left on the table. Like they could have had so many cool T-Rex swimming chase scenes or battle scenes. Who knows what they could have done? I mean, there's going to be tons more of these movies. I hope that at least the people in charge of that series are watching this show that Jose's recommending so they can have some cool swimming dino stuff in the future sequels that are inevitably to come. All right, but Sean, you've got some anime recommendations on Netflix, is that right? Or are they both
if we're gonna go for some positivity before we hop off, I have a couple recommendations on Netflix. I binge watched all 24 episodes of Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045, which, if you're watching Westworld, it's kind of the same sort of thing. If you've never seen Ghost in the Shell, it's near future, it's cyborgs, it's what does it mean to be a sentient being. And this new series, it's the third season. You can see it here. It's CG animated. It looks pretty good. Netflix goes for the CG anime for some reason. Maybe it's cheaper to make. I don't know. It's hard to. If you've watched the original series, it's kind of hard to distance yourself because I love that original animation. But this is fine. Story wise, it's interesting. It's about how the American Empire post World War IV, I believe, the economy has completely tanked because an AI has destroyed money. Basically, no country has any sort of money. And the only people who are rich anymore or have any money are arms dealers because the American military has created this idea of sustainable warfare and have AI who are constantly like creating wars basically just to sustain an economy for the rich. And this AI has created these creatures called post-humans because he's realized how horrible sustainable war is. And these post-humans can like dodge bullets. They always know what you're going to do next. They can hack 1,000 people's cyber brains because everyone has a cybernetic brain in the series. And it's about these characters who work for the Japanese government discovering what these AI are, finding out that the AI is attached to the Department of Defense in America. It's very political. It's very, I would almost say jingoistic for Japan, but the series always has been that way where it's like America becomes an empire. America's the bad guy. It's a really good show. The beginning of the show was kind of hard to get into. The middle is amazing. Just goes at a sprint. Absolutely fantastic. And then the end kind of trips. But it's a return to form because Ghost in the Shell had another series called Arise a couple of years back that was a little But I'd still suggest it. It's a good, if you've never seen Ghost in the Shell, it's a good start. I mean, I'd watch the movie. I think the movie's even outside of anime, one of the best movies ever made. I'm not sure if you guys have any familiarity with the series or with Ghost in the Shell.
Can I admit to you, Sean, the first time it registered in my consciousness was when the Scarlett Johansson controversy came up, and thankfully, I didn't watch that movie. It was sort of like, well, what's the source material on this? And it's like, okay, that makes much more sense. It was just like you go to the stuff that reminded me of Akira, for example. So that's like, okay, that I am familiar with.
Michael's at Disneyland. He's watching us. Well, thank you. I'm glad we're.
Appreciate it, Michael.
I hope you're waiting in a queue or something, and there's not something exciting happening right now.
Won't find these properties in those.
We are perfect viewing if you're waiting in line to get on a ride. Yeah. If you've seen Akira, this is very Akira-like. Of course, Ghost in the Shell influenced The Matrix. Huge influence on The Matrix, I should say. It's very influential. And like I said, this is a series that I would recommend people who don't even touch anime. because it's more about military stuff. It doesn't lean into the anime trappings.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I've got a passing interest in Ghost in the Shell, nowhere near as deep as you. Like, you've got all these subtitles in this new series. So, but I'm intrigued. Like, the way you explained it, I'm going to have to check that out. But yeah, thanks for that recommendation. I think we're probably about to our time, guys. But thank you for joining us. I appreciate everyone helping us do the Warp Zone. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Enjoy Disneyland.